Let's talk about defense within limits versus defense outside of limits. Every attorney purchasing legal malpractice insurance should be aware of this critical policy feature and whether the attorney fees and costs incurred to defend a claim are within the limit of liability or outside of or in addition to the limit of liability. Why is this important? Under a DWL policy, or defense within limits policy, the defense costs incurred to defend a claim are applied against and reduce the limit of liability available to pay damages or loss for a covered claim under the policy. Thus, a DWL policy is commonly referred to as an eroding limit policy because the available insurance protection under the limit of liability erodes or is reduced as the claim is defended and defense costs are incurred. Defending an LPLI claim oftentimes is difficult, time-consuming, and can be quite expensive. As the defense costs continue to mount, the limit of liability or insurance protection available to pay damages declines, and the insured attorney may find that the policy does not have enough remaining protection to pay the full extent of the damages or loss. In that truly unfortunate scenario, the attorney is faced with uninsured damages or loss in excess of the remaining limit of liability available to pay damages, thereby creating personal liability exposure for the attorney to satisfy the excess damages or loss. Now, under a DOL policy, or defense outside limits policy, the defense costs incurred to defend a claim are outside of the limit of liability and are not applied against and do not reduce the limit of liability available to pay damages. As you can see, a defense outside of limits policy is clearly superior protection for a lawyer when compared to a defense within limits policy. And the legal malpractice insurance costs for a defense outside of limits policy is therefore higher. ALP's legal malpractice policies generally provide a substantial claims expense allowance that is available up to $1 million depending upon the limit of liability under the LPLI policy. It is extraordinarily rare that a claims expense allowance would be exhausted, but under our LPLI policies, the limit of liability would begin to erode only after the claim expense allowance is exhausted. You should also be aware that an LPLI policy with a claims expense allowance is more expensive than a pure defense within limits policy without a claim expense allowance. If you don't believe you need a claim expense allowance feature within your policy, then ALPS offers unique options for a true defense within limits policy that will reduce your legal malpractice insurance cost.